predictive analytics will play more of a significant role in digital CS, and it really enables companies to anticipate their customer needs, identifying risks, take those proactive actions, but through analyzing historical data, patterns, etc. Also, data privacy trust is really going to get into digital customer success a lot more. And there's obviously increasing concerns every single year about data privacy, security. Companies are going to need to prioritize this more and more, especially through those digital CS initiatives with how much and how frequent communications are happening, right? And the last one is more of that emotional intelligence and customer success. As AI and automation are going to play more of a significant role in our customer engagement and interactions, emotional intelligence will be more important. Companies are going to have to start developing more strategies that empathize with customers, that aspect of empathy, understanding their emotions, understanding their sentiment, to be able to respond to them accordingly, right? It's not just like, hey, let's check in, or I haven't spoken to you in the last 30 days. And how was the quality of that most recent interaction? And what do I do with this now? So those are really the three I'd say are going to start emerging and becoming a bit more prominent next couple of years.
Spotlight, brought to you by CSN Focus, where we refine customer success, uniting GTM teams across North America.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Spotlight podcast, brought to you by CS in Focus. I am your host, Elizabeth Italiano, and I'm really excited to be here with Lukas Alexander today, who is the VP of Customer Success at ChurnZero. Prior to that, he was the head of client success and operations at Cision. And I also have to say that previous to that role, he worked at my absolute favorite sports team of all time, of all sports, the Montreal Canadiens, as a communications leader. And as much as I would love to also talk about my beloved and embattled Montreal Canadiens, that is not why we are here today. We are here to discuss digital CS programs, best practices, and building and executing digital CS. So on that note, I am going to hand it over to Lukas to tell us a little bit more about himself and his role.
Thanks so much. Really happy to be here. And sadly, we won't have any Montreal Canadiens to talk about before the month of October or when the season starts. But yeah, really excited to be here to speak with you. So I lead customer success here at ChurnZero. I'm about 7-8 months now into this role here at ChurnZero. And previously, as you mentioned, I worked at Cision for about 8 years, really started my career as a customer success manager, got into people leadership, and really fell in love with customer success and enjoy the whole concept, of course, of leading people, but also knowing that your people leadership impacts people, customers as well, helping them achieve their objectives. So, and then I had been a customer of ChurnZero for a really long time. And we were one of ChurnZero's first customers when I was at Cision. And obviously it was when the opportunity came around to join ChurnZero, I didn't even give it a second thought. Felt like second nature to me, and I loved the entire ChurnZero team. So I'm really excited to be here where I am today. And yeah, outside of work, I have a 2.5-year-old daughter who was growing up way too quickly here. And so doing all the dad stuff on the weekends and the evenings. So really enjoyed that part of my life as well.
Awesome. And living in one of the best cities in North America, in my opinion. But anyway, a little bias there. But yes, thank you again for joining us. I mean, running the CS team at ChurnZero, having a young daughter, your hands are full, I'm sure. So really appreciate you taking this time. So let's get right into it. But first, I want to level set with the audience around digital customer success. So you often hear digital CS and scaled CS used interchangeably. So how do you define digital CS, and do you consider it the same as scaled CS, or is it different?
Yeah, I think two are definitely, you hear them used in different contexts and different conversations, different companies also. So we work with so many customers, obviously, over the last several years who digital CS, scaled CS is all the rage, and customers will call it different things. But in my mind, digital CS is the provision of customer success really through digital channels, mobile apps, even social media platforms, emails, chatbots, other types of communications, and different ways to communicate with customers and stakeholders. And it encompasses that use of technology to deliver efficient, effective customer experiences. On the other hand, though, scale takes up the term scale really takes a bit of a different angle. Typically, in my mind, would refer to that ability of a company or organization to handle a larger volume of customer requests or larger volume of customer experiences without compromising the quality of the service that you're giving. So there's some overlap there as well, right? You can use digital customer success strategies as part of a larger scaled customer service. So that's where I see those two sort of concepts sitting together in the same strategy and the same function. And obviously more and more over the last several years, digital CS has really made its way in scale customer success, scaled customer service, really.
Right. Yeah. The way I've thought about it and talked about it in the past is scaling with digital CS. So that being one of the mechanisms to scale.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for clarifying that, because I do know I've been part of conversations where some confusion happens and I'm like, okay, we're talking about two different things. While some people use it interchangeably. So wanted to level set on that. Now, getting into more of the details around digital CS, what would you say are some of the key components that a CS leader should consider when building a successful digital customer success strategy from scratch? So day one, don't have anything in place. Where do they start?
Yeah, no, for sure. I get asked this question a lot, actually. And a lot of companies out there who are, despite this being a hot topic now for third, fourth year of running here, some organizations are still doing this for the first time, which is totally okay. But the biggest thing I would say that the first key component is, and I also want to make sure that, customers are not losing sight of this as it goes along, but it's really that ability to understand the customer's needs. Because when you put forward like a digital success strategy as part of a larger initiative to scale your operations, scale customer service, it's obviously about getting more efficient, right? And there's something really selfish about that for the organization, for the company, right? You want to increase margins, you need to do more with less, like all that other stuff. But understanding your customer needs, get that deep understanding of your customers, their pain points, their expectations, their preferences as well. So that's the first thing I would say when you're starting to build a digital CS strategy from scratch. You need to understand your customers in the different segments that they're in. And then the other thing is, what are those digital tools and technologies? Do you have the right tools to deliver a scaled or digital CS model? So a lot of that comes with investing in digital tools and technologies to facilitate customer engagement, customer support, customer enablement as well. So there's so many different parts of building a digital CS strategy, but digital CS being what it is relies heavily on technology. So that's generally the second or third thing you're going to want to do right away, building from scratch, is asking yourself, do I have the right tools in place from a CSP perspective, a CRM perspective, an LMS perspective? Those are all things that are going to help you scale. Technology really becomes your best friend in that digital CS world. So yeah. And what type of self-service options do customers have? So then it's really reflecting on how can we empower our customers to help themselves before they're sort of coming to you and tapping into resources. So do I have the right self-service options in place? A lot of that goes down to what's in your actual product, right? Do we have to build anything in the product to make this product easier to use, to help customers troubleshoot things themselves? And that falls outside of technology that you're going to go in and buy to layer over your CRM and things like that.
Right. Yeah, you hit on something really key around efficiency and knowing your customers and your buyers. One of the things that I'll often ask people if they're talking about digital CS is, do you have a full understanding of your persona and who your ICP is? Because it's hard to scale and use digital CS if you don't know. You could be efficient, but it won't be effective. So I'm glad you mentioned the efficiency piece, because that is really important. And I think collaborating with support as well must be a big part of it, because you've mentioned customer service a few times. So
Yep. Yeah. Self-service. Do you have a knowledge base? Some customers that we've worked with or also other organizations, other companies out there, or some have not yet built. Their product is so new, there's a knowledge base yet, but everyone wants to do the digital CS thing, the scaled CS thing. But once you start digging into it, you start asking yourselves, am I set up for this today? And what are some of the things I need to go and get, go and build myself? But also you struck a chord there around what do we know about our customers? What do we think we know about our customers? But does that align with what our customers are expecting, right? So asking customers for their feedback. We're continuing here at ChurnZero to iterate on our digital customer success strategy. And we meet with customers all the time to ask them about their own digital CS. Just because we do customer success, we sell products and services for the CS field. Our customers are doing a lot of really great things. And so soliciting that feedback from your customers, validating is my understanding of the customer, actually what our customers are expecting. Always a huge part of building not only a digital CS strategy, but anything you're going to inject into the customer experience. It's always worth it to get customer feedback and to ask customers what they think about how they would feel receiving this type of experience as opposed to another.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. Talk to your customers and see where does your perception align with their reality is really important. So yeah, and it's kind of crazy to me sometimes when you have to remind people to talk to their customers, but sometimes you do. So I'm glad you called that out. So speaking of customers, I want to, talk a little bit about customer segmentation and how that plays a role in digital CS and what criteria should companies use to segment their customers effectively.
Yeah. So segmentation obviously plays a big role. And I'm going to caveat this that digital doesn't need to be its own segment. You can do digital in all of your segments if you want. But segmentation is something that companies should be doing not only once, it should be something that gets revisited quite regularly. It plays a crucial role, particularly in digital CS, because it'll allow you to tailor your strategies and your interactions to those specific needs in your customer base, right? Their preferences, their behaviors by different customer groups. And by segmenting customers effectively, as a company, you can deliver more personalized experiences, improve CSAT, drive better business outcomes. And those are all things that roll up to driving revenue outcomes and for your organization. So in terms of criteria, there's obviously some fairly basic ones. Start small with segmentation. Some of the ones that I hear a lot about are, what is the customer's ARR with us, right? What are they spending with us? What is the customer's ARR? That indicates their size. We still see a lot of companies segmenting by employee count. And in a lot of cases, like the employee count's either inaccurate or out of date, but it's not really a true reflection of the size of the team that you're working with, right? So ARR, like spend with you, either customer's ARR, and what types of products do they have? How many seats do they have? Things like that indicate what level of service as well is going to be expected, right? A customer who's coming to you with 500 seats as opposed to a customer who's purchased 10 seats. Both of those customers are going to require potentially different level of effort from your CSM, from your support team, from your implementation team. So I see a lot more companies including some more product specific criteria in how they segment. And that folds into scaled CS, digital CS, because it's all about efficiency, right? So you're going to have to get into some of the more product specific behavioral aspects of segmentation more than you would say revenue and things like that. But you can also do a lot around industry as well. I see some customers segmenting based on industries. That depends on what expertise you have within the organization. If you have CSM, so you want to dedicate to ed tech, maybe you can afford to have 3 or 4 CSMs that are only focused on a certain industry. But yeah, those are the ones that I see coming up quite a bit.
Okay. And so you mentioned a number of components there. So I imagine access to data is important in order to really refine your segmentation, which is a good segue into the other question I wanted to ask you is what data consideration should companies take before they even start looking at implementing digital CS?
Yeah. Data is always a big question. And the quest for perfect data is always out there. There's no perfect data that exists, I think. But first of all, there's also no digital or scaled CS without data, especially in this particular strategy. You need at the very least to be able to answer three different questions, I would say. So from a data perspective, you need to be able to answer who is my customer and who are the key people there. So that's going to allow you down the track to automate communications, automate surveys, making sure these types of communications, engagements are being sent to the right people at the right time. Also, when do they renew? So your data needs to be able to tell you when do they renew and what products do they have. That's going to allow you to add automation to your renewals process or track things like how is the customer, are they ready for that next product, right? At renewal to allow you to expand and things like that. And then the third question, I think for digital CS, that your data needs to be able to answer at a very, bare minimum is how are we engaging with you? So are we tracking our meetings? Are we tracking our emails? This will help you really keep track of things like when was the last time that we spoke to you so that we could potentially automate triggers and proactive actions to CSMs to get in touch with you again if we haven't spoken in the last 30, 60 days, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is, I don't want to say it this way, but could potentially be a nice to have, but you need to be able to answer at least those questions. Who's the customer? When do they renew? What commercial data do you have? And how are we engaging? Obviously, there's so many more data points like product usage and things like traffic to your homepage and your website, all of that stuff. But very, very minimum, those are the three I think are super important in digital CS in particular.
Right. So those are the table stakes. And I'm picking up on a theme here is that we need to know our customers. And unfortunately, we see in the industry a lot that there's a lot of companies that their customer base is kind of a black box,
Sure.
which is scary for me to think of, but really good kind of tactical tips there for anybody that's considering digital CS. And kind of more broadly speaking, what are some of the common pitfalls to avoid? So not having those data points would be one. What are some other mistakes and pitfalls you see?
Yeah. And this is one that the one I'm going to say, one that I've made this mistake in the past is creating a ton of plays, a ton of content before you even get started. So you want to build a digital CS program strategy. You're going to need to create content. You'll need to create plays and things like that, different engagement tactics. But I think we get really excited about creating all this stuff. If you have a customer marketing team, you'll tap on your customer marketing team to get some help. You'll create all these different plays, these different engagements. And then once you actually roll it out, you'll realize this one didn't really work or that one didn't really work, or I never used half of the stuff that I created. Instead, what I actually, obviously you want to create some stuff. You want to create some foundational things like your renewal playbook. You want to create an expansion playbook and engagement, the basic stuff that aligns with the three data points I mentioned, but start small. Don't kill yourself on creating so much stuff because it's going to change as you roll out as your customers change, but also oftentimes your perception of what you needed to build the digital strategy for is going to be different based on what's actually out there, what your customers actually need from you. And if your customers are used to something today, and then all of a sudden they're getting a ton of heavy digital engagement with all the stuff you just created, they're going to notice a really big difference. So start small and let your customers help mold your digital CS strategy to a certain degree. And don't go, crazy making a ton of plays and content before you get started. Create a bit, see if it works, iterate, create some more, create less, that type of thing. So that's a common pitfall that I see customers, organizations rolling out digital CS is they'll want to create a lot of stuff right away.
Got it. So crawl, walk, run approach. Don't try and boil the ocean. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, people get really excited when they're kicking off something like this and ideas are flowing. But yeah, sometimes it's best to kind of take a step back and test, iterate, implement. Change management is something to be mindful of. So in terms of segmentation, the data, starting to roll out playbooks, what's some of the technology and tools that you'd say would be essential for not just efficiency, but effectiveness of any digital CS interactions?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So I guess it depends what you mean by a digital CS strategy. Technically, you really only need a customer communication tool, right? At the end of the day. So it depends on what your budgets are, but technically you really only need a communication tool. But if you really want to get a strong digital customer success foundation set, at a very least, I'd recommend a CSV in it, not only because I'm the VP of CS at ChurnZero and like at a CSV, but you need a CSV that's going to make sense of the end-to-end customer journey and create proactive opportunities for your CSM, right? You're not going to get those proactive cues from live interactions as much as you would in a higher touch model. So you're going to need a tool to help you do that. And typically it's a CSV that's going to do that for you. So for example, we have several customers who are currently doing digital CS and don't even use a CRM, right? They use ChurnZero, for example, as their single source of truth that drives their customer 360 view, their renewals, their expansion playbook, their journeys, their voice of customer, all of that stuff. And obviously it does all of their outreach as well. So strongly, the CSV is definitely one that can touch a lot of the different buckets and drive automation, and preferably one that you can do in-app tools with, do walkthroughs, things like that, to be able to really maximize that digital engagement. And then obviously there's some other tools that you can connect to, secondary tools, whatever your marketing tools are, that giving you your website analytics to see what your customers are, how they're accessing your content on your website, things like that. But typically the CSV is the baseline one that you really need.
Okay. And I will say, I'll remind everybody that you were using ChurnZero before you worked at ChurnZero. So you kind of lived and breathed it before you even joined a CSP company.
Yeah. And I've used a lot of different CSPs in my career as well. So I had the opportunity to take them all for a test drive, if you will. We did a lot of, when I was at my last company, we did a lot of acquisition. So a lot of the companies we were acquiring, I know either they've used a Gainsight or they used a PlanHat or a Vitally. So yeah, I got the chance to use them all, but ChurnZero has obviously been the bias for me. Definitely the one that's been the nearest and dearest to me. So
yeah, absolutely. I understand why I always hear good things about ChurnZero. So want to switch gears just a little bit. One of the things that there's a lot of talk in the industry about, and this is sales, CS, marketing, kind of all of go-to-market, but as part of digital CS as well, is that there's a lot of spam and a lot of fake personalization. So how do you maintain the personalized engagement with clients while having a digital CS that's program that's not one-to-one, but you still want to maintain that personalization?
Yeah. So I'm going to actually go back to something I said towards the beginning of our conversation. And that was that digital CS doesn't necessarily need to be in its own segment where it's low touch, 100% automation. The concept of digital CS can even touch your enterprise or highest touch segment in different ways. It's about creating efficiencies in different pockets of the customer experience. So for example, while in your lowest touch segment, a renewal reminder email might be fully automated with no message or no review by the CSM before it goes out. Whereas in your highest segment of customer, your high touch segment, your enterprise segment, maybe you'll want to have that CSM write that email and give it a review before it goes out. So, and it gives the CSM that opportunity to review it, add a personal touch to it. Maybe they know the contacts that they're emailing in a particular way. In ChurnZero, actually, we have that concept of a message review where based on a certain customer behavior, like an email can queue up for the CSM in their command center, which is kind of like their home base where the CSM lives and breathes every morning. And so there's a concept of a message review where the email queues up there, the CSM adds their touch and hits send right to that on that message. So we created efficiency there. Maybe we also sent that notification as an in-app announcement, and the next time our POC signs into the product, they see it. But my point is that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. There's a middle ground there where you can have the automation, you can have the technology, boil it up to the CSM and say, hey, you should send this email to your customer. And then the CSM adds that personal touch. So I like that because it's a nice balance, and I like it because it's something you can use across all different segments. It's not limited to one, and that drives things like scale and things like that. And it's going to depend on your capacity to strike a balance on what your customers are expecting from your teams, really.
Yeah. I love that. That's efficiency meets effectiveness, right?
Yeah.
And to your point, balance. And I like what you said before as well around CS or digital CS not being specifically just a segment, and the higher touch CSMs can leverage it as well. So I really like that perspective.
And
Um,
that's something that a lot of customers I speak with realize in their second or third year doing digital CS is they launch it first as its own standalone. And then you hit a point where you realize like, oh, hey, it doesn't necessarily only have to be for my low touch. I can get efficient with my high touch customers as well. Maybe not to the like full blast, but there's different levels that you can achieve that with all segments.
Absolutely. Love that. A great perspective and great advice. So around measuring the effectiveness, so we just talked about efficiency and effectiveness a bit. What metrics and KPIs should companies be tracking to measure the success of their digital CS initiatives?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Metrics. Has to be about the metrics, right? So yeah, no, for sure. It needs to tie back to revenue somehow. Obviously, I'm sure any leader you ask will tell you something similar, both what customers give you as dollars, so revenue, and then how much you spend to serve those customers in each of your segments. And in a digital or like scaled CS, you'll probably want to emphasize a bit more on things like your cost to serve. That's why people got really excited and crazy about digital CS, right? It's all about doing more with less, all those buzz phrases, right? My advice is always, 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 first and foremost, be in touch with your leadership team, your board, ask for feedback on what they want to see. Don't assume these are the metrics, but some of the specific KPIs are your usual, your GRR, your NRR, and your logo, right? Those are the most important metrics there. And then adding on cost to serve, especially when you're talking to a board or a leadership team. Even we speak to a lot more and more CFOs about digital CS because they're super interested in the cost to serve, right? They're controlling the budget for the entire company, what's coming in, what's coming out. So they're particularly interested in that cost to serve, and it's a real top line metric. Those are the top four, I would say: your GRR, your NRR, your logo, and cost to serve as your lagging metrics.
Got it. And I want to just emphasize one point that you made. I mean, all of your points are great, but the fact that you mentioned that you're talking to a lot of CFOs because they are interested in digital CS and the impact it has on cost to serve. There's sometimes I don't know why it's a debate, but sometimes you'll hear people in the industry saying, oh, a CS doesn't really need to know how to talk to a CFO or are really going to engage the CFO. But if you don't believe me, believe Lukas. It is something that is top of mind for a lot of them. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah, CFOs are getting more and more involved. I think it's also, we've seen it more and more as digital CS and scaled CS got bigger, but they want to know how efficient are we? They want to be able to predict spend, be able to predict revenue just as much as we do in CS. So yeah, more and more CFOs are getting more involved in customer success. They want to know what's happening in the CSP. How is it being used? How is it getting us results? How's the cost of spending on technology being offset by those customer outcomes? So yeah, more and more we're seeing.
Awesome. Okay. That's really helpful to know, and glad you're sharing that with the audience. So pivoting, I guess, a little bit back to strategies around digital CS, what would be some strategies and tactics that you would recommend companies use to keep customers engaged through digital? Yeah. So not necessarily even just consuming, but making sure they're engaged.
Yeah. So this sort of ties back to what we spoke about personalization earlier, but there's a lot of different things you could do, and you're going to want to have emails, or whether automated or semi-automated with a message review before go out about sharing best practice. Best practice is always a good one. So having an email that is coming from a CSM or someone of importance at your company saying, hey, most of our customers do this and customers like you do that. And then you link to a help article or a video, things like that. But one of the things to take that even further, one of the things I love to see in a digital CS strategy is a CSM giving recommendations. So again, it goes back to that semi-automated approach where in this context, you would have to have an email queue up. Maybe, haven't spoken to this customer in the last 30 days, email queues up for the CSM. And then it sort of requires that CSM to take a peek into the customer's application, their platform, see what they're doing. And then just basically going back to them with, even if it's just one small recommendation, right? That took maybe 10 minutes of the CSM's time, but it's really, you have technology queue up a proactive action. CSM has to go in and figure out what's that recommendation I'm going to give a customer. And then sending that off to anyone will at least create some type of a response. Maybe you'll get oh, thanks, it's a great idea, but we're not quite ready for that yet. Or you'll get something like, oh, wow, I hadn't thought about that at all. Tell me more. Then you have a conversation going, you have a back and forth, and then you've generated some engagement there. So those are some of the things that I really like to see through digital engagement strategies. That could be done in-app as well through a pop-up if you have the right technology. Like, have you tried this? Customers like you are doing that, or I've noticed that you've done this. Try that. Here's a little video or something like that. So yeah, it's really taking that recommendations angle, but having, again, going back to your technology that's driving your digital CS strategy, queue up the proactive action for you, serve up the proactive, a little tip to the CSM to be, hey, time to send this customer a recommendation. They haven't received one in a while.
Love it. And that's being proactive with a purpose, not being proactive just for the sake of being proactive. So the difference, I'm going to check in or send something that may or may not be applicable to you, but proactive with a purpose and in an efficient way. So that's really great. That's awesome. So what trends do you see that are going to be emerging in digital CS?
Yeah. I wish I had a crystal ball for sure to get the answers to that. But some of the things that we'll start to see more and more of, I would say there's maybe three of them. So the first is more predictive analytics for customer success. So predictive analytics will play more of a significant role in digital CS, and it really enables companies to anticipate their customer needs, identifying risks, take those proactive actions, but through analyzing historical data, patterns, et cetera. So now that there is a historical data pool somewhere for predictive analytics to pull from. So I think we're going to see a bit more of that start to make its way into digital CS. The data backlog builds up of customer behavior and things like that. And then I also think there's going to be a lot more, especially in digital CS, where you're doing things a lot more at scale. There's going to be a lot more focus and need for companies to be continuing to place more attention on data privacy and trust, right? So data privacy, trust is really going to get into digital customer success a lot more, I think. And there's obviously increasing concerns every single year about data privacy, security. Companies are going to need to prioritize this more and more, especially through those digital CS initiatives with how much and how frequent communications are happening, right? That this digital CS is super heavy on engagement and sending comms out and automating communications and things like that. So having enhanced privacy controls, consent mechanisms, or just general ethical data practice is going to be super important to maintaining customer trust, compliance, and things like that. And then the last one I'll say is more of that emotional intelligence and customer success. So I think as AI and automation are going to play more of a significant role in our customer engagement and interactions, emotional intelligence will be so much more important. Companies are going to have to start developing more and more strategies that empathize with customers, that aspect of empathy, understanding their emotions, understanding their sentiment, to be able to respond to them accordingly, right? It's not just like, hey, let's check in, or I haven't spoken to you in the last 30 days. How was the quality of that most recent interaction? And what do I do with this now? So those are really the three I'd say are going to start emerging and becoming a bit more prominent next couple of years.
Well, I think each of those three things could probably be a podcast episode in and of themselves. I'm really excited about the prospects of improved predictive analytics and doing analysis on lookalike customers more easily. So I think you'll be right on that one. And I hope we see that come to fruition. And the privacy thing is huge. I know it's not to some people the most sexy, interesting, hot topic. It's not, you're not going to get a lot of sound bites out of it, but it is really
Yeah.
important. And I think it's going to be even more important of where we even see sales reps and CSMs put customer data and things of that nature. So
Yeah.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see. We'll catch up in a year from now and see see where all of those predictions are. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
These things they try and predict as many of them as possible, but I'm looking forward to seeing what the next year holds for digital CS in particular and where it's all going to go. So we'll see.
All right. Well, we're coming up to closer to the hour. So I'll ask you the final question. And as you know, this is brought to you by CS in Focus. So I have a question around focusing. And I know that it can be really easy to get pulled into a zillion different directions, and it can be hard to lose sight of ultimately what we're trying to create, whether it's programs, initiatives, strategy. When it comes to digital CS programs in particular, and you mentioned earlier that people can create way too many plays and kind of do too much too soon. What has helped you stay focused when creating digital CS programs?
Yeah. Yeah. So my response is actually ironically going to be about focus as well. And it's keeping, so two things to focus on is keeping the focus on the customer, because keeping the customer front and center, like I said at the beginning, digital scaled CS can become something that you obviously want to create efficiency. You want to improve margins and things like that. There's a very business and operational side of it, but we can't forget about the customer at the end of the day. Constantly remind yourself of the ultimate goal. And it's to enhance the customer experience, because that's what the customer experience is, what's going to drive value to customers. And that's what's going to really help grow your business, going to help you achieve your goals as a company, et cetera. So really by keeping the customer at the forefront of your decision-making, always going back to the customer and making sure we're not jeopardizing any customer experiences by taking certain decisions or moving forward with certain strategies or plays or things like that. You can stay focused on truly what matters. So that's part one. And then part two is keep focused on your people, right? You can build digital CS strategies, but at the end of the day, you'll have a digital CSM or two, and it's so easy to load them up with 100, 150 customers because you have a digital or scaled CS program. Burnout is still very real, right? Like you still need to make sure that you're not moving too fast, and CSM that's going to be working with more customers than previously. Are we sure we're fully, and that person is fully set up to do so, and that they're set up for success as well? So there's the people, there's the human side of it as well that we can't lose sight of when we're thinking of digital CS programs.
So keep focused on your customers and focused on your people. That's great.
Yeah. And, at the end of the day, keeping your people happy means keeping your customers happy too, right? So at the end of the day, I believe it boils down to as well.
Yeah, absolutely. If you think about sending burnt out, tired CSMs that might not be feeling the best about their position, and then that's you're putting in front of your customers, and you can't put that all on the CSMs. It's a team sport, right? So those are two great things to focus on. Anything else before we wrap up that I didn't ask about that you want to share with the audience, or any other final tips you'd like to give?
No, I mean, I'm always eager to speak to anyone who wants to talk about customer success or digital CS or anything related to it. So any other questions or advice you may need, feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn. Happy to chat through. It's always a pleasure to chat with you and with the CS in Focus crew.
Likewise, I really enjoyed. I certainly learned a few things today as well. So I appreciate you coming on again. I know how busy you are. So really appreciate all of the thoughts, ideas, tactics, strategies, your wealth of knowledge that you shared. So yeah, we'll let you get back to your day, but thank you again.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Elizabeth.